Hi, welcome to 6Storage webinar. I'm your host Mastan, co-founder of 6Storage. This is the show we connect self-storage veterans across the globe. Being a self-storage software provider and serving 28 plus countries, we come across interesting facts in terms of business operations country to country. Then we thought of connecting them to share their strategies and insights which should help self-storage global community. So today we have Bob from Ohio. He is an aviation instructor and operating his two facilities with the brand name of Willowdale Storage. And he constantly maintains 90% occupancy ratio for the both facilities. He has been helping 6Storage to grow in the USA market since its inception. Hey Bob, welcome to webinar.
Hi, Maston. Thank you. I really appreciate being here.
And we have Peter from Germany. He is a serial entrepreneur and mentor for many startups. He is operating two facilities with the brand name of Barber Store and Park. Peter helping 6 Storage to grow in Germany market with a local language support as well. Peter, welcome to webinar.
Thank you. Great to be part of it today.
So Bob and Peter, I'm really excited to kick off our first webinar session. So here it is, the first question. Fencing for a self-storage facility is have to have or need to have? We have been following quite a number of blog articles and news. And there is an interesting instance I heard that an American actress unit was robbed for $200,000 of belongings and many more similar instances. So that being said, should we consider installing a fence at your facility is basic step towards protecting your renters? So Bob, since you are from the United States, what is your idea about fencing?
Well, Maston, I can tell you that I got into the self-storage business by buying existing units. I didn't build them. And neither one of my facilities has a fence. What I found is that if I can get my tenants to use good locks on their fence, then they become less of a target of opportunity. The actress, the unfortunate actress that lost that huge amount of value, she almost sounds like it was targeted, like somebody knew that her stuff had gone in there or somebody had spotted it, and protecting yourself from that would be really difficult. I mean, that's a big payday for a bad guy. But for normal folks, a good lock goes a long way. And like I said, I run almost completely full with no fence. Peter, what do you think?
You know, from my point of view, we've built our facilities ourselves, and I consider a fence as a first line of protection. I think if somebody wants to get into your facility, they'll find a way. But I operate on the principle that at least a fence is a first deterrent. I think it does add to the security, and it does just give us that extra added sense of security. We have 24-hour access, and I think a lot of our customers like the idea that when they go in, they feel protected by this fence. They're not standing out in the open. So certainly from a European point of view, I don't think I've seen many. Bob, are there many new build facilities your side without fences, or is it mostly the older legacy operators?
Well, it depends on the market you're in. If the big operators are moving in and putting up 300-400 units, then they almost always are fenced. But there are plenty of new builds, maybe 200 units and less, that aren't fenced. In fact, we have one in town here that's part of his older facility is fenced, and the new construction that he's operating is not fenced.
Okay.
There are lots of deterrents like cameras or other things. There's a saying in the U.S. that says "good locks make for good neighbors," and I kind of believe that.
Okay, we haven't reached that point yet. The industry is pretty new in Europe compared to the US, so maybe we'll get there. But for now, I definitely think a fence is something that a lot of people feel secure in. I think that's an interesting way to get into our second point of discussion for today. Where Mustan, you came up with this nice discussion point here in terms of managing access control, and I think more importantly to everyone is, does fencing help increase revenue in one way or another? Bob, what are your views on that?
Well, I think the fence lends itself as an excellent marketing tool. If I had, for the same money, if I were a customer and a facility was fenced and a facility was not fenced, then I would I would be interested in renting from the fenced facility first. But what I find here in the U.S. is that most facilities run very full, and I get calls all the time saying that I'm the last guy in town that has a locker. Well, then they have to rent from me. There's no other facility available. Which, for all the benefits of the self storage industry, that is the one weakness, is that you just can't get more inventory. It's a large capital investment. Um, I like the idea of the fence for access control from the operator standpoint, in that your tenants have a greater incentive to keep you paid. If you're using some automated software like 6Storage that can track payments for you, as soon as that payment's late, you can set the software to deny access to the unit, and then the renter has a greater incentive to not skip out on their last month or whatever they owe. So you can catch it quicker. For me, if I'm going to overlock somebody, I have to get to the facility and actually overlock the tenant on time, and it makes for, because I have to do it personally. I think there's a perception that it's a almost insulting to the tenant, which they owe me money, so it's insulting to me. But if it's automated, then the computer's doing it, and the perception shifts a little bit because the computer's doing it. I'm not necessarily the big bad guy that's denying them access. I think that would help me personally uh, capture some lost revenue.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
think that's kind of the same way I see it. So I think we're in agreement there. I think it definitely does help increase revenue in two ways. I think it helps you, catch or limit your bad payers because you have that automated lockout, which is nice. And I think from a marketing perspective, like you said, any customer that's looking at a facility, provided they're the same price, I think if one is fenced and one's unfenced, the reaction is naturally to go for the more secure one. It's the same with houses and everything else. So I think it not only helps you market better, but it increases your revenue by making sure that if you do have bad debts or bad payers, you're able to catch them a bit quicker. So from that point of view, I find that a very useful tool.
So the perception changes when system automatically locked, and generally it goes to personal perception sometimes when you overlock the unit. Is it so, Bob?
I think so. I mean, I haven't done a scientific survey on it, but
Okay.
if I have to make a call to collect, or I go personally to overlock someone, then there can be a little bit of a personal affront to the tenant. So having it automated and done uh, impersonally
Okay.
limits that a little. That
Okay.
way, it's everybody's 100% treated the same, and the computer's doing it. I'm not doing it to them.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Shall we move on to third question?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. So we have been talking about fencing and 100% occupancy. Let's consider that there is a facility already, it's full with 100% occupancy. Why would anybody invest for fencing or the security gates? He's always full. So how does that work in Europe, Peter?
I think from a European point of view, it's a big marketing point here for everyone. Security, security, security. Not to say that we have lots of security problems, but it's definitely something everyone markets. So I don't think you would find many facilities that don't have a fence or don't have a gate. I've certainly not seen a lot of them. But for me, I think it's a case of, when would you, it's not a case of if you should invest the money or not. It's more of a question of when would you like to invest the money. In other words, the market changes the whole time. if you start a facility and you don't have a fence, and suddenly 2 or 3 years later there's other facilities and they all have a fence, then to stay competitive, you kind of are forced to nearly put in a fence if you want to keep your prices the same as everyone else. So the question is, do you wait for that to happen, or are you proactive and do you try and fence earlier so that you're already getting that return on investment sooner? And I think, going back to what we said earlier, certainly my perception that you could charge slightly more for a facility that is more secure, in inverted commas, and that is return on investment. Yes, you have to put in the fence, but I do think you can charge slightly more for the next 20 years. So it will come back to you. What's your view, Bob?
I would agree with that, and that the fence gives you the perception of more security. It makes your facility a harder target. Yeah, I would look to get my ROI maybe a little bit faster than the next 20 years, and full is full. So uh, catching catching that part of the market. I don't know, in the U.S. markets here in Ohio, probably 50-50. Smaller operators tend to not have fences, while larger operators tend to have fences. But I'm a guy that doesn't have the fence, and I run almost full all the time, and I don't think I'm very far below market for what's available. So having the fence and being able to charge a higher premium may very well come with other benefits, like uh, because you could stratify your tenants. So if I could charge an extra 20 to 30% for the fence, I might eliminate a certain segment of the market, and that might make my business a lot easier to operate. So, uh, yeah, if I had the option to put in a fence with an expectation of a reasonable ROI, I would certainly do it.
What's your view on a reasonable ROI? I mean, I just threw 20 years out there, but from my point of view, I would be looking to get that cost back in a 3 to 5 year period, nothing longer than that.
That's exactly what I would look for too, Peter. 3 to 5 years to get the investment in the fence back.
Correct. So, I mean, I think we're both saying if you have the chance to put in a fence and a gate and access control system, and you think you can get that back on a 3 to 5 year period, then maybe it's something all operators should consider looking at.
Yeah, it's a big variable because there are a lot of market forces that go into how much it's going to cost you to get the fence. So,
Correct.
And what kind of fence? I would estimate for my facilities to fence them would probably cost me between $17,000 and $20,000 US.
Okay.
So if I were to get, I have a little over 100 units. So if I were to get another $10 a unit out of it, that would be another. Yeah, that would work out. If I could charge it, but that would be an average of $10 a unit. I don't know that I could get another $10 out of all my smaller units. So I would really have to put the pencil to paper and see if I could, and see if it would be feasible. It would take a good business plan to make sure.
I think so.
Then I
think,
would also capture revenue.
Correct.
Sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, I think it's I think everyone needs to look at it for themselves and look at the three aspects. So in other words, is it for marketing to get a higher price? There are security risks in the area, actually to help you manage your business better in terms of lockouts and things like that. And I think, Mustin, you've come up with these 3 points, and I think that, and the bottom line, every operator, I think, needs to do a case-by-case feasibility and say, just like you mentioned, Bob, if I put this in, what's it going to cost? What can I get back? And is that a good ROI or not?
Well, yeah, and before we wrap up, I want to put one more thing out there for operators, especially in the U.S. and in Ohio, is that the laws in the U.S. for self-storage change state to state. Because I want to say this in general terms. So strike the part about in Ohio, and let's just go in general terms. U.S. self-storage operators have to provide 24/7 access unless the contract is delinquent, and then you can remove you can remove the access. So if you're going to have a fence or a gate and maintain the protection of operating as a self-storage facility, then you need to have some kind of access and 24/7 access. And in order to do that, you either have to have it manned 24/7, or you have to have an automated system like 6Storage where it'll track the access codes.
Mhm.
So that so if you're going to have the gate and the fence, then I would say you almost have to have some type of automation running alongside it. And since the industry is older here in the U.S., there are still lots of operators out there doing the paper and pencil tracking, which
Yes.
which would would severely limit the utility of a fence. But if you're listening to a webcast, you're probably not one of those operators using a paper and pencil. So anyway, that's just my last thought on that. Is if you're going to use the fence, you need to make sure you check with your local applicable laws that you're still operating as a self-storage unit and not as some other kind of landlord-tenant arrangement.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
very interesting. So before wrap up, I have one more question from tenant's perspective. Let's consider that there is a 5 by 5, 25 square feet unit, which is without a fence, offering for let's say $30 per month, and with fence, someone else charging $35 a month. And what would be the tenant's perception? So is he gonna negotiate by comparing both the two prices?
I think it depends what the tenant wants. In my opinion, I would expect a facility without a gate and a fence to be slightly cheaper. If it's the same price as another facility with a gate and a fence, but I still wanted it, I would certainly negotiate the price down to what I deem as a discount for that fact. But I don't have a direct comparison in Europe. We don't get that case often. So
Okay.
here, access control and things like that are pretty much everyone has it. And that could be, like Bob says, because our industry is a bit newer and younger. So from our perspective, I certainly think you would have to, or from a customer's perspective, there would be an expectation that there's a different price between the two. Otherwise, the customer would use it as a negotiating point, yes.
Okay. How about US, Bob?
Well, I've had a few customers try to negotiate the monthly rate down, and I just don't do it because I run so full anyway. I don't see any advantage from the operator side to knuckle under and give a discount. Now, that being said, being able to charge a premium for the perception of better security might make it worth changing my clientele a little bit. Potentially, I could have fewer headaches if I could charge another $10 or $20 a month for having a fence.
Okay, sounds good. That was very interesting, and I hope this helped for other operators too. Thank you so much for joining in the webinar. Bob and Peter, I appreciate your time. See you soon with the other fascinating topic. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Maston. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks a lot, Mastan. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for your time, everyone. Goodbye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.